Hey guys, we're filming this week's video from Thailand. We're back for another video with me, Haley Writes, and I'm so excited to share what I read in May with you. I hope you get a nice little cup of coffee. I've been drinking some amazing coffee here in Thailand. There's literally cute coffee shops everywhere you go, so it's been really fun to read, drink coffee, go to the beach, and just do a bunch of fun things. But I don't have a lot of people in my life who are into reading as much as I am, so if you love reading and watching book review videos, then you're in the right place. Yeah, grab your coffee, grab your matcha, whatever drink of choice you have, and we will dive into this month's 6 book reviews, which made up for last month where I only read 2 books. Let's get started. Since it's pouring rain, it's the perfect day to film a what I read in May video. Every single book that I read somehow circled back to this theme about control. And that wasn't something I was trying to do intentionally. This was such a better reading month than all of my previous reading months. It was way more emotional and it was fun to do it while I was traveling. There were still books that I struggled with, but I finally found a dystopian book that reminded me why I love dystopian books in the first place. You'll find out which book that is later. So the first book that I finished in May, I actually started last month because it was a nonfiction book, which means that it took me a lot longer to read than like a fiction book where I could just binge it and be really excited about the characters. I really had to use my brain for this book, and that was The Let Them Theory. It was absolutely amazing, and I'll give you my rating at the end, like I do with all of my reviews. This was one of the most memorable nonfiction books that I've read in a long time, and I highly recommend it. It was so good. The core idea was so simple. Your kids could understand it, teenagers, young adults, anyone. The Let Them Theory really sticks with you. I feel a lot of self-help books really blend together after a while and you start to forget what you even learned. But with this one, I'm like, okay, I know what the Let Them Theory is about. And the funny thing is, it's about letting go of control, which was the theme about in May. For some reason, the theme in May was all about control, and it was cool to start off the whole month with the Let Them Theory. This is a book that I don't think I'll ever forget. Like, the core memories that she shared in this book have become core memories for me remembering the book. Things that happened in her life, I'm like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense, and it's a theory that I can put into practice every single day. Like, her whole story about her son's prom and how this theory even came about was just so cute and special. I'd read it again just for that. There's a lot of things in my life that I'm leading. This book is really helpful for people in leadership because leadership exposes how badly you want to control outcomes, and you want everyone to be happy, you want everyone to be comfortable, you want nobody to feel disappointed, and you also want everyone to like you, and that's not possible. Mel's whole point is basically that you cannot control other people. You cannot control whether people misunderstand you. You can't control whether people complain. You can't control other people's disappointment. And so all you can do is let them. Also, I was reading this book with my Kindle, and then I started listening to the audiobook on Audible because I think the wait list on Libby was so long that I was like, I want to read this sooner. So I did purchase it through Audible, and it was a great listening experience. Like, Mel Robbins is actually reading her own book. So it feels like she's hanging out in your living room or your kitchen or your coffee shop, wherever you are. And because she's sitting there talking to you, it kind of feels like a mini therapy session. So I highly recommend this book. Definitely check it out. See if you can get it at your library or on the Libby app. Very solid nonfiction read. I gave this book a 3.5 stars. The only reason that I didn't give it 4 or 5 stars was because it started to feel repetitive. Like, the theory is solid. She just starts to apply that theory to different parts of life, like relationships, your work, colleagues, different parts of your life. And so that started to feel like she was just stretching the theory more and more to the point where it was just for word count. That's my personal feeling. I was like, as soon as I got the theory, I got the theory. Maybe if there was like more ways to apply it in life that I could like follow and there was action steps and different things, then it would felt more like homework, something I can go do. And then it would have been like a 5-star book for me. But because it just felt like the ways that she applied it to her own life or her clients' lives or different things like that, it was sort of like I had to figure it out for myself, and it was just a little bit more conceptual and not something I wanted to do. So here's my rating from GoodReads and Fable. If you want to pause the video and read those, that way you don't have to go and try and find it. But if you do want to see my reviews on a weekly basis, I definitely highly recommend coming and joining me on Fable or GoodReads. I would love to follow you back. Just comment on one of my posts saying, Haley, I follow you on YouTube, and I will follow you. I love building community on those apps. It's so much more fun to go post on Fable about my books than it is to go post on Instagram, at least right now, if I'm being honest. So I would love to connect with other bookie people over there. So that's a side note. Then I finished Wildcard by Mary Lou. I read the last one in April. I read Warcross, and then this month I finished the series with Wildcard. It's a 2-book series. It just felt like one long movie. Like I was like, why is this not a movie? It is so immersive and I loved it. The action in this book is so good. I was listening to the audiobook version with Libby, and anytime something interesting happened, I was like completely locked into the audiobook, which doesn't happen to me a lot. I feel like with some audiobooks, I can tend to like slowly drift and I have to really like make myself focus on the audiobook. But with this one, it was so easy to stay locked in. There was fighting, tension, twists, and it was just a lot of fun to read. Although I will say the slower sections dragged a little more in the audiobook format. Specifically, like I think audiobooks expose pacing issues in a book faster than just reading like a physical book. But what I really appreciated about Wildcard was that there was like a deeper underbelly of conversation underneath all of the gaming and technology, because the series is constantly asking, what gives human life value? How much control should technology really have? What happens when memory and humanity start blending with systems and artificial intelligence? The romance also surprised me in a good way. I was so devastated after reading the first book, Warcross, that I didn't know if I could get through Wildcard. I was really shook by the plot twist, and it was very much made up for in the second book. Even when characters made messy decisions, I still emotionally cared about them, and that's really important to me. Like, I really need to care about the characters to keep reading the book. This series definitely feels like more young adult. There is violence, sexual content, assassinations. If you like gaming aesthetics, anime vibes, virtual worlds, then this is definitely for you. I gave this book 4 stars. It was really good. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because it's not the Hunger Games. Why is this always my thing? I'm like, it wasn't the Hunger Games. It wasn't Divergent. Like these books that in my mind just represent 5-star books for me. I'm like, well, it wasn't that. I think if you read those books when they first came out and then the movies came out, you'll understand like they were so good they needed to be turned into movies. This book was amazing, but it wasn't so amazing that it needed to be turned into a movie, even though I would like to watch the movie. It's not that shocking in a way where you don't know what's going to happen in the end. I don't know. It's not a new concept. There's nothing really new in this book. I love Mari Lou's writing, so I'm going to keep reading her stuff until I don't like it anymore. Like there was Jennifer Lynn, I forget her, I'll put the name here, Jennifer. I was reading all of her books until suddenly I'm like, this doesn't sound like her anymore. Or at least maybe she's not putting the same like effort into her books as she did with the Natural series. I loved it. And then I read more of her books and I was like, this doesn't compare at all. Like, I don't know where the super in-depth, like, research, details, just interesting, mind-bending stuff, like, it got thrown out the window. So the next book was The Giver, and this was back to fiction. This book shocked me. I was not expecting it to be very good. I don't know why. It looks old. I've heard good things about it. And I even met a friend who had read it in high school, and she was like, "Oh, Haley, you're making me want to read this book again." But it's very short, so you could definitely binge it. But it genuinely shocked me because I was sort of expecting like a more simple, like classroom dystopian book, like something they would share in class. Instead, I got the most thoughtful book that I've read in a long time. Like, from the first few lines, I was like, this character cares so much about words the same way that I do. So it was interesting to just feel connected to the characters. If you like writing or if you like reading, I think you will really connect with the main character like I did. I actually started reading this because I couldn't sleep one night, and I thought, perfect, this will probably be a book that puts me to sleep. But no, I was reading into the wee hours of the night. Instead, I became obsessed with Jonas, the main character, and what fascinated me most was the way that language plays into the entire story. Jonas notices words differently than everyone else around him, and it was nice. I was like, maybe he's an Enneagram 4 like me. Because he wants to be special, like in comparison to everybody else. He's like, oh, everybody else does this, but I'm like this. And just noticing those things really made me feel connected. So if you're an Enneagram 4, you might really like this book. Everything is connected. Like, the reason they don't use certain words is because they want control. Again, this was another book about control. This society removes all of it in the name of safety and sameness. Certain language, certain words, certain memories, certain things, they remove it all. Is that the only way to control a society, is to control the history, to control the memories, to control what people know and don't know through language and memory? Like, that really made this book more disturbing than I thought it would be. Like, it's like a 250 word book. It's short, but it was so grabbing. The horror is quiet. Like, what's happening in this society is hush hush. It's not loud. So that was really surprising to me. It's like you realize as you're reading that these people have slowly stopped becoming fully human. You're like, you think you're reading about humans, and then you're slowly like, wait, what are they doing? This connected back to almost every other book I read this month. Like I said, it's like, this is about control. Why is every book I read in May about control? Oh, this is cool. So I noted that the Let Them theory talks about control personally. The Heavenly Man talks about control spiritually. And The Giver shows what happens when society tries controlling humans completely. But what happens is it removes joy, choice, love, pain, depth, everything. I loved how this book felt to read. It was so fun, and I don't know if I'll read the next book because it's not even a continuation of this book, which I thought was really weird. Like, if you look at the series, book 2 has nothing to do with book 1 other than it's the same world and society, and I don't know if I want to read that. I really wanted to know, like, what happens to Jonas? What happens after book 1? What happens to his story? I ended up rating this book a 5 stars. It was such a good read. This book made me realize what dystopian books are actually capable of, and I loved it. Really caught me off guard. I haven't read a 5-star book in a while, but I would read this book again, which is a huge green flag for a 5-star book. The next book I read in May was The Heavenly Man. There's like a mix. I'm reading sci-fi fiction, nonfiction, faith-based books, and I like the mix. It really makes it easy to read the next book when it's different from the one you just read previously. If I only read sci-fi or if I only read dystopian, I would get sick of that and they'd all start merging together. But when I take breaks and I switch up what I'm reading, it makes it so much easier. So I highly recommend that. If you're like, I'm in a reading slump, try reading something that you don't usually read. It'll be way better. I read The Heavenly Man. It was so intense. If you want an intense read, highly recommend this book. But I'm somewhere between mind blown And what did I just read? This is probably one of the most intense missionary biography experiences I've ever had reading. My husband read this book, I want to say like 1 or 2 years ago, and he loved it. It was such a great read for him. So if my husband loved it, I was like, okay, I'll give it a try, because he doesn't read a lot of books. Still, it was really intense and emotional for me. Honestly, it probably was exactly the amount of intensity I could handle. I wonder if it got even more intense. I think it would have like tipped me over the edge and it would have been too much. After listening to the audiobook, I was locked in. And what's crazy is this is not fantasy. This is real life. This is not dystopian. This is not sci-fi. And still, I felt so immersed in this story. I felt like I was really there. So much empathy was running through my veins. I was there in the pit with Brother Yoon, which if you read this book, you'll understand him being in like, I don't even want to give it away. I'm going to call it a pit. It's not a pit, but him being in the pit and what people did to him, like it was crazy. I was there. I was crying for this man. Just the suffering in this book. Wow. Like it really confronts the amount of comfort we have. You're going to experience that in this book. You're going to be like, wow, I take so much for granted, or I'm so privileged. I am so comfortable. We have so much convenience, comfort, safety, like predictability in day-to-day lives. This man and these people do not. And meanwhile, this man is risking everything for his beliefs in Jesus. Like he's risking his entire life, and it was incredible. It honestly makes like modern Christianity in the US or in Canada, the Western world, feel like so safe and polished. I think it's something I needed to read before heading out into the world in these third world, second world countries. I really love biographies that pause to tell like the next generation, like here's what I've learned. Like I think that's really important and really valuable. So being someone from the next generation, from someone like Brother Yoon, I do not take for granted that he wrote this book. I do not take for granted that I had the privilege of reading it and experiencing some of the things he went through like vicariously. So amazing. This book makes you want to surrender everything and lay down your life for Jesus. So that was a powerful book. It felt very empowering to read. The next book I read was Legend by Mari Liu. And yes, I've already read 2 of her books and I love them so much that I thought I'd give a third one a try. This is the first book in a series that she's written. I really thought that this book, Legend, was going to emotionally destroy me the way The Hunger Games did, but I went in expecting obsession because I love dystopian books. I love sci-fi. Instead, I spent most of my days kind of confused, and not confused, but like emotionally disconnected. I kept waiting for the moment where I would suddenly feel attached to the world and the characters, and it took me so long to get there. The thing I did like was the dual point of view. In this book, we switch between 2 characters. We switch between June and Day, and I actually really like the atmosphere of the Republic. It reminded me like weirdly of like COVID era and like COVID culture sometimes, like government control, fear, class separation, mistrust. I like reading about those things. And so that part of the book felt really believable to me. But emotionally, I wanted more. I don't know if it's just me, but I want a lot of emotions from a book. I want a book to make me laugh, to make me cry, to make me feel like I'm in somebody else's world or somebody else's shoes. I love feeling empathetic. It would have been nice to have more fear, more stakes, more like attachment, even of the side characters, and more immersion into the story. I started listening to an audiobook of, I think it's called The Woman. It's such a long book, so I'm intimidated to read it. It's like 15 hours of an audiobook, but even just the start, I was like, oh, I'm feeling really immersed. Like I'm picturing every part of the scene from like the 1960s. But with this one, with Legend, I didn't feel that. I wasn't like, ooh, I'm here, I'm there. Like I can't picture the world after reading it. Like it would take me some like really deep thought to remember the world building, especially after reading both Mary Lou's Warcross books, that series where the setting feels so alive. Tokyo in Warcross genuinely sticks in my brain. Like I can picture every ounce of that story just thinking back of it, and I loved that. And so with that, I was expecting sort of a same experience. I think that Legend is based in LA or New York. So many of these stories. See, it's like with Warcross, I knew it was based in Tokyo. I can remember that. And that one, yes, it was New York and Tokyo. But with Legend, it's like, I think it's LA. I do think that the romance carried a lot of emotional weight, so that was good. Makes me really nervous for what's gonna happen. Then there's this line. The look on her face is so heartbreaking that I wish for a second that I could hold her. Someone needs to hold her. That was such a cute line. And that line finally made me pause emotionally and feel something, so that was good. But it was like, oh, there's the depth I've been waiting for. If the ending wasn't so strong, I don't know what I would have done. Overall, Legend was an easy read, a good premise, strong ending, but I just wanted deeper emotional immersion. Also, I know that I'm a fast reader, so I don't think a slow reader would get into this book because it took a long time to get to the interesting parts. So I rated this book a 3.25 stars, which is still a really great read. I'm excited to read the second book. It's the final countdown. It's the final book I read in May, Like a Mighty Wind, a non-fiction missionary biography written by Mel Tari. This book felt so personal for the season that I'm in right now with Scott. We are in Thailand on a vision trip, planning to move here full time. So this book specifically is about revival in Indonesia, which looks like a very religious, nothing really happening, like all these Christians in Indonesia where they go to church and they're just going just to go. Like it's just a religion to them. It's nothing more than that. This revival comes and floods in like a mighty wind where everyone suddenly is hearing from the voice of God. They're seeing signs and wonders and miracles, people getting healed. And it's like a mighty wind that rushes into Indonesia. And it's so beautiful to read about. But this guy who's a part of this, he's like, God, what do you want me to do with my life? He's like, go to America. And he's like, why? That's the country that on the money it says, in God we trust. Like, why would you send me to America? They're already a godly country. And he's kept hearing God tell him to go to America. And when he gets there, he ends up seeing all of these homeless people and people swearing and getting drunk and doing drugs. And he's like, wait, what happened? I thought this was a godly country. Like, why is everybody sinning? What's going on? And he really came to realize that in America, everyone overcomplicates the gospel. And he has come to America to show them like the simple gospel of Jesus came and died for you to save you from your sins. You are depressed and sad because of not knowing what it's like to have a relationship with God. And he came so that you wouldn't have to turn to drugs, so you wouldn't have to turn to alcohol to find freedom and happiness. Like, you can have that for free. It's already been paid for you. Getting really passionate. This book was so good. It kept pointing back to surrender to God, to obedience, humility, and childlike faith, like doing something because God told you to and not holding yourself back. I really like this book. The reason I didn't rate it 5 stars, I rated it 4 stars, another 4-star book, is because there was a lot of repetition towards the end of the book. I think a lot of nonfiction books are like that, where towards the end, they start to get repetitive because they're trying to tell more stories to prove their points, but the point's already been made. So that was the only reason I rated this 4 stars instead of 5 stars. But overall, this book just keeps fueling my fire that is burning. It might be interesting for you to like watch someone like a Christian who's like loves sci-fi and dystopian and then also loves missionary biographies and nonfiction books. Like, it's kind of fun. Every month's like a balance of both. And I feel like it really keeps me grounded. It really keeps me fighting for my faith and feeling fueled and empowered to go do really awesome things and serve the way God asks me to serve, but then also like really using my imagination and like picturing the future and being a visionary and wanting to write my own book that impacts people someday. So I love the balance. Those were the 6 books that I read in May. Apparently, May was my questioning control, rethinking humanity, and contemplating society month. It sounds intense, but it was a really good reading. I'm like really enjoying myself. I think The Giver completely won the month for me. It may have changed how I think about writing dystopian stories altogether. It really made me feel like I had permission to nerd out as I'm writing my characters. So yeah, that's what I read in May. My reviews are always on GoodReads and Fable. All the links are in the description if you're ever curious and want to find me elsewhere on the internet. But yeah, I hope we can be friends and connect here in the comments. But for now, that is what happened in May. I will continue to post about my vision trip on Instagram. So if you're more curious about like the day-to-day reading habits and things, you can find me on Haley Writes, or Haley Jansen is my other Instagram. So yeah. With that being said, I hope that you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys. Okay. Wow, ChatGPT, that's very personal. Okay. Most memorable.